Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel and live. Today, we will be creating, well, not a card project, but something a little different. Uh, I will be using the Altenew's Sakura Blossom Set. This is this huge stamp set. This is what we'll be using for our project today. Now, you must have seen me using this particular set to create cards. So I used this entire image, stamped it and ink blended it, and then cut them into 4 different panels, and we used them to create these cards. Hi, Papa. But today we will not be cutting out the image. We will be using the same exact thing and creating a framed piece. Now, for those of you who don't know this stamp set, this is a full size stamp set. We have this beautiful Sakura Blossom stamp and a small little bundle here. We have some fun sentiments that you can add with your stamp. So I have let today be your new beginning. Then there's one that says sending hugs. We also have sending sunshine and a little note to brighten your day. Now, these are some of the sentiments that I picked up from this stamp set. You can definitely use your watercolors or your markers, but we will be using the coordinating stencil that is part of the set. We also have an embossing folder, but I'll not be using that. The embossing folder is good for this smaller image. But we will be stamping just this one big image and adding a little sentiment to create a wall decor piece. Now, where did I get that idea? Just yesterday, I created art for the 4th of July, and I was really inspired to create more wall decor and art pieces as compared to cards. No, I'm not moving away from cards. I just find this a little more intriguing and something that is out of my comfort zone. So I really want to take it up as a challenge, and that's the reason I will be creating a framed piece today as well. Now, this is a smaller frame. This was 4 by 6 inch, but I will be stamping, well, I already stamped the image. So this is our full cut stock panel. Now, if you cut this, you'll get 4 A2 size cut bases, which is exactly what we did here. And I'll be using the same exact colors, almost the same exact colors to create this. And here, instead of stamping this little guy, this I stamped a sentiment. Now, this particular sentiment comes from the Magnificent Magnolia set. So we have, let me just grab that for you. This is one of the Craft Your Life project kit sets. This is one of my absolute favorite. We have those little magnolias that you can die cut, and I absolutely love this set. You also have coordinating stencils. We have some dies, and this is the little magnolia that you can cut out and color. Well, for this project, I just stamped out "You Are Special." I absolutely love the font on this one. And we also have a little sub sentiment which says, "You are a beautiful person inside out." I felt this would be perfect, like, just as a display piece, reminding myself, my family, that we all are special in our own way. And a little note of encouragement is absolutely perfect to start your day. So I will be coloring this in using the coordinating stencils. Again, you can definitely use your watercolors or your alcohol markers, even pencil colors. But well, since we have the coordinating stencils, why not use it? So let me show you the coordinating stencil set. Now, if you go back a few weeks earlier, I used the stencil and the smaller flower from the set to create a little project. But today, we'll be using the other parts of the stencil to color in this big, beautiful image. So we have a total of 6 stencils. So 4 of these stencils will help you color the flowers, and then the remaining 2, we have the stem, and the branch detailings. Now, when you see these four stencils, they are all open stencils, which means they don't add a lot of detail to your image. You will just be adding ink to the open petals. It's like this. So this is what it is. So there are no detailings, but we will be using multiple shades of inks to add a little bit of that depth and bring out that beautiful cherry blossom feel. And we will be adding some mix and match of colors and from lighter to darker shades. So we will be coloring this entire image today. Now, all of the stencils are numbered, so it's easy to line up. But since this is an open image, there's no layering happening here. It doesn't really matter which stencil number you go for. So what I will do is now if you don't have the big mat, you could definitely hold this in place. Now this is my glass mat. This is a magnetic mat by Glassport Studio. So I have magnets. I'll just hold the panel down, and when I'm stenciling, I'll just line up the stencil, and these magnets will hold everything together. Now, if you do not have a magnetic mat, you could definitely just tape this panel down onto your work surface and again tape the stencil over the work surface. That'll hold everything in place. Now, I will be using the big size ultra sticky mat. Now, this one measures, I think, 9 by 12. So, this is perfect for our entire image. So, this is same as the smaller sticky mat that you see me using all the time, just that it is a lot bigger. So here's my smaller sticky mat. This is what I use every time, but since this image is quite large, bigger sticky mat. This again is by Altenew. Now this one is really firmly stuck to my mat, and my mat is fairly new, so it does have a lot of tap. It is sticky enough to hold the panel and the stencil in place, but not super sticky that will tear your panel once you try to pull it out. So I will keep both these pieces aside and I will place my sticky mat right here. Next, I will go ahead and place my panel in place there. So the panel stays in place, it won't shift around now. Next, I will place now this is stencil number 1. I will try to line this up as perfectly as I can. Now, I did stamp the image using my pigment ink and added clear embossing powder. So the paper must have warped a little, but that will kind of uh, the warping will kind of move the image and the stencil may not line up as perfectly as you want it. But I think I will just stick to that, and little imperfections are absolutely fine. So let me just line this up carefully. And so in this particular stencil, you can color in the big image that we've already stamped, and then you'll see some open areas. This is for the smaller image that is on the stamp set. Well, we didn't use the smaller image, so I will be covering this remaining part with some post-it notes just in case I accidentally add color in that part. Also, since this piece is going to be like a whole framed piece, I'm not going to be trimming out the floral image. So I will be uh, masking off the edge. I don't want ink anywhere other than my colored image. I want to keep the panel as neat as I can. So I don't want any smudges around the image. Now, as far as coloring goes, now for this particular card, this set of cards, I used the Carnival Magic set. Now, this one has cotton candy, coral red, cherry sweet, and rhodolite. Now, I'll be using the same exact shades for this project also. Now, another set that I really like for this image is the Bubblegum Dreams. Now, this is a fairly brighter set of pinks that I have. I'll not be using this, rather, I'll be using this. Let me just grab the card that I created using this particular color set. So, this is the card that I created using the Bubblegum uh, Dreams set. Now, you'll see this is a lot brighter as compared to these coral reds. So we have two different options we could choose from. So let me just go with this particular shade today because I really love the soft, almost coral pink, coral red shades on this one. So for that, I will first start with cotton candy and cherry sweet. So these are the two shades that we'll be using. We'll use cotton candy to cover the entire petals. And hey there, hi, thanks for joining in. So I'll be using the cotton candy to add color on the edges or like the entire petal. And then I'll be using cherry red with a smaller blending brush to add just the tiniest bit of detailing. So let's just get started with these two colors. I will keep my frame aside so that now I like to have the other ultra sticky mat just by the side so that this will hold my ink pads in place while I'm ink blending. Now, since this is a larger image, I really want a lot of like, we'll be using that ink pad a lot. So I just want to make sure it stays in place. If I were to keep it on my um, glass mat, it'll move around, which is something that I don't like or prefer. And even if I keep it here, it'll just keep sliding around. So this is the best way I like to hold my ink pads. All right, let's get started. So I will start with cotton candy, which is the lighter shade of pink. I'll grab some of that ink on my blending brush, and what I'm going to do is add ink to the center of those petals. I'm not bringing the ink out. Just I will be focusing on the center of each of those petals. So I will do that for all of my open areas. Now make sure that whenever you're adding ink, have different intensities of ink on all the different petals. You don't want every petal to look exactly the similar. So when I said I'm adding pink just to the center, maybe on this flower, I will ink blend pink all over. So that way I get variations of petals on all the flowers and all of the flowers look different. So that I feel kind of gives a beautiful texture to our stamped image. Now, in some of the flowers, I'll pick up extra color, add a darker tone of that beautiful cotton candy. And for some, what I'm going to do is whatever ink is left on my blending brush, I'll just add that. So this one is a lot darker than this particular flower. I'll do the same for all of my petals. Now, this particular stamp set, it's really big, so it wouldn't fit on your regular stamp wheel. I did use the bigger stamp wheel, the stamp wheel 2.0, which makes sure that my image completely fit, but still it's not big enough to hold the entire image. So I did have to make some adjustments to that. Well, I bought the image already stamped, so you don't get to see how I did that, but I probably will have a YouTube tutorial, a shorter video where I just show you how I place this entire image onto my stamp wheel 2.0. Now that I'm done with layer number one, I will go in with the deeper layer, which is cherry sweet. Now this is, so cotton candy was color number one. Then we have coral red. So I skip coral red and I move one shade darker, which is cherry sweet. If you wanted, you could also go in for rhodolite, which is the darker in the cluster, or you could also choose jaspberry. Now, with cherry sweet, what I'm going to do is apply the slightest bit of ink on the smaller ink blending brush and stick to the very center and just flick in flickering motions. I wouldn't go circular. I will just flicker my my ink blending brush towards the edge of the petals from the center. So I get that deep transition there. Now, if I were to go circular, that might leave harsh lines. So that's why I always prefer having like flickering motions to give different, uh, look to our floral image. And it doesn't look as harsh. Now here, if you see, I just added directly. So that's why I got the harsh line here. So what I'm going to do, I'll just grab some more ink and just add some flickering motions, trying to blend that ink out. And also note that these inks, when they are wet, they look a lot more deeper and, deeper and really saturated. But once it has time to, like, settle down into the paper, they will lighten up a bit. So that's where we go. I'll do that, the same exact thing for all the petals. Now, again, like we did with cotton candy, even here, I will not be doing the same exact thing for every petal. I will keep, a variation in the intensity so that all the petals look a bit different. So that's pretty much it. This is a very relaxing project. I feel like, if you are not, if you don't have, like, that crafting mojo, and then you're not sure what you want to do, this is one of those stamp sets which I feel can be, like, just relaxing and coloring in and creating a beautiful wall art. And then maybe at the end you can decide whether you want to actually go in for a wall art, or just cut the panel and create a few cards. So there we go. I'm not being very particular about how my ink goes. It's just so that I get that deep orangish orangish concentration on the center of the flower. I'm okay with having like different types of flickering motion around my petals. Now, if I was coloring this with alcohol markers, this is exactly what I would be doing with the darker shade of the color. Now, well, for this particular, now again, we will deepen the inner part of the each of those flowers using rhodolite, or let me take jazzberry this time. So again, I have another smaller ink blending brush, and instead of rhodolite, let me go into that deep, rich magenta. So this is jazzberry from Bubblegum Dreams. So now what I'm going to do, now this brush is smaller than what I used for cherry sweet. So this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the color and stay like super centered. So I am not even going to extend as far as my cherry sweet went. It's just to deepen the center of our flowers. Now, if you don't want this, you could even try using a darker shade of brown or even black. I think black would also add that really dramatic feel to your cherry blossoms. So just like we did with the cherry sweet shade, I'm just going to add this in flickering motions. We don't want that harsh lines to show. Usually I do lives on Saturday night. So it's the series is called Late Night Crafting on Saturdays. But well, last night was with all the firecrackers and all the fun happening. I decided to, not have my late night crafting. And well, uh, my little one is sleeping right now. So I had some time. I said, why not do this week's crafting session at in the afternoon? So yeah, I'm not sure how well this timing would work for me because, well, this is the time where my little one goes to bed and it's his nap time. So the house is quiet right now, and I get to do a little bit of crafting and go live with you guys. So, well, I'm just adding that little bit of color on each of those flowers. So as easy as this looks, it does take this project, I will say, is a little bit time consuming because of so many layers and so much detail that we are adding. If you want just one layer of color, well, that's like the easiest because that'll take hardly any time. But since we are adding like almost three different shades of pinks and these beautiful coral reds, that's the reason it's taking so much time. Now, this is the same exact thing we will be doing with all the different layers. So there we go. So that was our layer number one. And I absolutely love how this turned out. Now, this is so different from these sets. Now, here I used just the Carnival Magic, and for this one, I used only the Bubblegum Dreams. So I get these results. Now, for this one, I actually combined both these sets. That's why we get a totally different result. Now, once we are done with layer number one, I will move on to layer number two, which again is exactly the same thing what we did with layer number one. Only we only thing different here is we have different set of flowers that needs coloring. Again, I'll just make sure my stencil stays in place. I don't want any of that stencil bits moving here and there. And I will pick up my sticky notes and just cover any place that I know does not need any of that ink. Now, again, the process remains the same. We will start with cotton candy, and let me go a little faster this time. So, so note that here I have a lighter shade of that cotton candy, and here it's a lot. Sorry, here it's darker, and here it's a lot lighter. For these smaller flowers, I like to go a little darker as compared to the open flowers. Again, you could definitely go with any color combination you like. I had to actually Google and find out like what color family does the Sakura blossoms belong, like do they have in reds or even lavenders, but this is the color family that I came up with, and I was like, okay, let me try mixing them together. Now I already had these corals, so I didn't want to create exactly same card design. So I just thought of mixing up my colors, which is why I decided to add jazzberry to the mix. So that was cotton candy. Next, I will go with cherry sweet. Now, again, the smaller flowers get a little darker ink. Just make sure each of these flowers look a lot different. And I would definitely want to color these using my alcohol markers, and I think watercoloring would be fun, but I am definitely not a pro with watercolors, so that'll be an entire day's worth of project for me. So for me, I personally enjoy coloring with alcohol markers, and well, stenciling is top of the list because it's a lot convenient and quicker. But if not stenciling, I think I would definitely go in for alcohol markers. I'm not a very big fan of pencil colors, or, well, I do love watercoloring, but I'm very slow with watercolors. So this is the fastest way, especially when you have a toddler at home and, like, he's waiting when mama would come and have, uh, you know, give him his time and play with him. So yes, it does. Seattle has beautiful cherry blossoms, and uh, I think cherry blossoms come in white as well. I'm not pretty sure about that. I think so. I may be wrong. Okay, now these are the smaller flowers, so I'll make sure I'll add a lot of color to these. I'll keep this more on the darker side as compared to the open flowers. There we have, and now we'll bring our jazzberry. Now for this one, what I'll do is I'll just remove a bit of that harsh orange, especially on these smaller images. I don't want to, like, contaminate my inking brush, even though, like, this is a lot lighter than the jazzberry, but I still don't like, having color here and there. So we'll just deepen the centers. Again, for the smaller flowers, I will add more of the darker jazzberry towards the base of those flowers. Just make sure you have the jazzberry just towards the absolute center of the flowers. That should do the trick. Pinkish white, yeah. So that was actually the idea behind this particular flower, that I will have pink at the very center, and then towards the edges of the petals it'll be almost white. But then, yeah, I tend to get carried away with my colors, and it's really difficult for me to stick to the lighter shades. So again, here on the smaller flowers, I will try to have a deeper concentration of jazzberry. Now, both the times I created this particular image and, like, I colored it, it was really difficult for me to cut it out into four panels. So that's why I decided, and well, I also saw the frame that I created, and I was like, well, this time, if I'm doing this, I am definitely not cutting it out. I'll be using the whole entire thing. So, and that's why I was like, okay, let's just frame it up. All right, so that is layer number two. And I absolutely love how beautiful this looks already. So if you're feeling a little bit artistic, you could leave this as is, like you have a few colored flowers and few with, open, no color flowers. That also gives like a beautiful different look. Like, I wouldn't call it incomplete, I would call it more of an artistic look. Okay, so I will be doing all the 4 layers. So we will bring in our stencil number 3. So the same exact thing. I will first cover up all the openings that where I don't want any of that color to go. Like just accidentally, like I don't want any of that color to smudge around. So again, let's start with cotton candy. Now, these are my absolute favorite brushes by Altenew. I really love them, especially for like, ink blending on images like these. Even, well, I do use my bigger blending brushes, but these are also perfect if you want to, ink blend an entire card background. They very rarely, like, unless you've like dipped in a lot of ink and adding a lot of pressure, they generally don't leave out any of those stark lines or creases on your paper. That was cotton candy. Let's bring in our cherry sweet. Again, I'll add a lot of color to the smaller flowers. And don't forget the flickering motion. Now, in this particular flower, we have that slight fold. So I will bring in that extra color over there. I would definitely like to try these cherry blossoms in blue, and even I think teals would look good. Teals with yellow centers, or yellow with teal centers like these. So yeah, I know they don't actually exist in those colors, but well, let's just let our imaginations run wild. So yeah, I think I will definitely be trying this in more of the non-conventional colors. A rainbow sakura blossom would also be good. Well, that is something that definitely doesn't exist. But I think it's definitely worth a try. And with that, I will just wipe excess ink. I'm not taking any stamp cleaner or any ink cleaner. This is just dry cloth. I'm just buffing off any of that extra ink. Moving on to jazzberry again. I'll add ink just to the center. And here in this case, to the base of these tiny little flowers. And this fold right here. These flowers, it's all about the detailings, but like I mentioned, it's also all about having fun with colors. Like feel free to use whatever colors you want. You now I'm using 3 different colors. You could definitely stick to just one color and call it done. And I did stamp this image using pigment ink and used clear embossing powder over it to give that beautiful glossy shine. But if you don't like that, you could definitely stamp it using your dye inks and then ink blend using your favorite shades of inks. go. I think let me know in the comments if you would want to see me try this like a no line coloring, like without the stamped image, just using the stencils and adding these beautiful colorful details on all of the flowers. I think I would definitely love to try that. I don't think I've seen it anywhere, any card maker do that. So if you have any of that kind of a design in mind, definitely let me know. And also, if you guys hear my little one crying, I'm really sorry about that. He just woke up from his nap, so yeah, hopefully his dad will just go pick him up and then they can go out. It's a really bright sunny day and a beautiful weather here in Seattle. For those of you who are new, I live in Seattle, and well, not exactly Seattle. I live in Auburn, which is almost say a few miles down south of Seattle. So yeah, it's a beautiful weather and absolutely amazing here. I love the summers here in Seattle. And I have been card making since 2019, and it's a really fun way to relax and unwind and have fun with colors. I have always been like very artistic and I love colors. So when I got into card making, I was not really sure, like, do people even appreciate handmade cards? But like, as and when I went into like diving deep into this field of card making, I realized how much joy card making not just brings to me, but even like if I was supposed to maybe share a card with someone, even they really appreciate not just my work, but also the beautiful colors and all the effort that goes into it and all the design. So, well, this is stencil number 4, which is the final stencil for all our petals. And again, in this one, we have all the petals, but here's just a small area which has those branches. Uh, the very first time when I used this set, I almost missed this, but then later I figured, like, I'll just make a note of that. And on my fourth stencil, I have the slightest bit of opening for one of those branches. Other than that, everything is just petals. Well, looks like my husband he put my little one back to sleep. So he is well, going to be 3 in August. So he is at his wild stage right now, which is cute and kind of scary at sometimes. I really don't, he's growing up too fast. So yeah, it's not so happy. But then yeah, he is growing well. He is very naughty, and he is the perfect 2-year old. He really enjoyed the fireworks last night. So last year when we took him out on 4th of July, he was really scared and he was not a big fan of the fireworks. But then yesterday he was like, "Oh, Mama, look, sparkle!" And then he had a lot of fun there. So now some of these petals you'll see I'm adding a lot of the cherry sweet. It's well, not that I want to hurry up, but then like I mentioned in the beginning, I want all the petals to look slight different. So that's the reason you'll see me add these variation of colors on all of the petals so that none of these petals look exactly the same. There we go. And the last shade is Jazzberry. Again, I'll just remove any of that excess ink and add jazzberry. So here the center of the flower is this, so that's why you'll see that color here. If you feel there's a lot of that dark ink, just bring back the lighter shade and just blend it out. So, you don't have to worry about that. Also, like I said, it will tone down. So when these inks are wet, they tend to look a lot darker as compared to once they have had the time to settle down and get absorbed into the paper. Again, make sure not to mix that flickering motion. You don't want any of those harsh edges to show. Now, before I remove the stencil, let me just fix this particular layer. For that, I will bring in some browns. I have the Desert Dream set, from which I will be using cocoa cream and choco hazel. So again, let me get my blending brush. I can fix that. So those were all the beautiful flowers. Now we will add color to the branches and the stems. So I will bring in stencil number 5. So stencil number 5 has these branches and some leaves and these openings. So let's go back to that and I'll try to align it as perfectly as I can. I will keep all of my pinks aside now and we will bring in our browns and greens. Now for my greens, the set that I like to use is the Mediterranean Glow set. So this one. So this is what we'll be using on our leaves. So I'll be using olive and sugar cane. First, I will start with the cocoa cream on all of these branch areas. I will add the same to all the dots as well. So if you wanted, you could definitely add some pastes to it, but then I will keep it simple. I'm not going to add any pastes or, any gels to these. I will add those dots. You could definitely leave it as is because we have those dots with our black ink. This will just add the slightest bit of interest. Next, I will bring in the darker brown, which is Choco Hazelnut, and add just the slightest bit of shading here and there, just to deepen the edges. This layer does not have to be absolutely perfect. Just wherever you feel you need a slightest bit of shading on your branches, or add more depth to the branch, this is where you will use this color. And then I will bring in my greens, which is olive and sugar cane. I'll start with the lighter green. And then I will bring in the darker green, which is sugar kelp, and just add the slightest bit of that shading to the base of each of those leaves. You could also use this color for the flower centers. I'll just remove any of that excess brown, and then you can just deepen all of those flower centers using this. Well, since we use jazzberry on the flower centers, it may not be as visible, but it'll definitely give the slightest bit of texture. All right. So that was layer number 5, and now we go on to our final layer, which is this absolutely gorgeous layer, which helps us fill in the remaining of the branches and leaves. Once we are done with this, we are done with the project. There we go. Again, here there are a lot of places where I might need these little post-it tapes. I will need one here, this up, and a small little one. You could also use masking tape, but for me, this works absolutely fine. Again, I'll start with browns first, and then we'll move on to the greens. The reason being, sometimes I do get browns on the leaves. That's okay. I am okay with that little bit of brown on my leaf. That just gives it a more of a distressed look. But then I don't usually like having green on my thick branches, especially like these ones. So I will go ahead and add brown. It, and then using the mini brush, Add a little bit of shading here and there to deepen that shadow. Now, before I add my green, I will just go and clean up the stencil. I don't want any of this brown on my green blending brush. Next, I will bring in Olov. And add that beautiful shade of green to all the open areas. Now here you'll see this brown, but I will just use a little bit of that green to cover it up. That doesn't really bother me. A few final touches here and there. And just this spot. Next, I will bring in sugar kelp and add just the lightest bit of that darker tone to the base of each of those. It doesn't have to be perfect. All you need is that little dark tone on your leaves just to give it a little bit of dimension and that beautiful depth. It kind of gives it a little bit of shadow effect. So I have these here, which I want a little bit green. All right. I guess we got all the parts covered. And with that, I think we are done with the ink blend. Just take out. So this was stencil number 6, which was the last stencil. And stunning that looks. So now to take out this paper, I wouldn't recommend just pulling it apart. I would lift my sticky mat and with that the paper just falls apart. And that's it, guys, our project for today. Let me keep this aside. I will be framing this up. I'm not adding any splatters or any extra details to this. I'll just frame it as is. I did get some ink smudges here. It's relatively, like, you can barely see it, and if you will frame it up on the wall, I don't think you can see it. But if you are someone who does not like that little bit of imperfection, you could definitely use a little bit of the sand eraser and just erase it out. Just make sure not to tear the paper. And with that, we are done with our project today. You could definitely use some glitter pen or some sequins to add on your little flower centers. Now here, if you take a closer look, I'm not sure if you can see it here on camera, but here you'll see the little bit of green that we added. And just take a look at that beautiful dark jazzberry center, and like towards the edge of the petals, it's still like almost very light pink to white, even white in some places. So all of the flowers look different, and I absolutely love how this project turned out. Now, I will be sure to link all the supplies down in the description box below, including the colors, the blending brushes, the big sticky mat, and the stamp set, and even this one. Note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Bye bye.